Challenger!
Hey, Prince Rana here, and thank you for dropping by. I will start with a warning. During this video, at times, I know I will get really pissed off, and I know I will call a certain Amish Space Station some choice words. If you manage to stick through the video, we'll get to the part that had caused this visceral reaction from me. You may also want to ensure there are no children around, not because what I say, but because of what this dumbass says. We'll be looking at this freaking moron Amish Space Station and his video titled Professor Dave Explains Destroyed. Let's see what this dumbass has to say.
Oh man, we're gonna just do a quick destruction video of Professor Dave Explains. This right here shows exactly how to debunk the globe. The easiest way. Just watch how retarded he is.
It's very easy to think of things that single-handedly obliterate the flat Earth delusion, like, say, the existence of gravity.
All right, everyone. Gravity. Let me explain. Newtonian gravity has been replaced by Einsteinian gravity. It is no longer a force. In Einstein's, I'm speaking slow for you, in Einstein's theory of relativity, he explains that gravity is not a force, but it is the effect of the bending of a conceptual medium called space-time.
Ugh, the utter stupidity of this jackass. And he calls other people retarded. That is truly rich. Okay, Amish, I meant jackass. Let me explain to you in very simple terms that even an 8-year-old would understand. And I am sorry to all the 8-year-old. An 8-year-old can read the text that is a bit larger. Can you actually read and comprehend? Let's read this title together, shall we? It reads, How we know gravity is not just a force. Now I understand being Amish. You're probably homeschooled. Thus you might have missed how grammar works. When a sentence says, Amish, you're not just a dumbass, but also a jackass, that means you are both. If you take the word just and also from that statement, it would mean something different. Honestly, I feel like slapping people who do not understand why gravity is a force. Jackass, as promised, I'll make it easy to understand. Following is a hypothetical scenario, so don't get your knickers twisted. Let's suppose the year is 1642. I will let you figure it out why. One clue might be adding those 4 digits come to 13. Now, you say something stupid and I slap you. I can slap you lightly or I can slap you with all my strength. Let's call that power. Are you with me so far? Next, if I would slap your left cheek hard enough, your head would probably turn and tilt towards right. But knowing me and knowing what a jackass you are, I would probably do a palm heel strike at the bottom of your jaw. Due to your sinus, you will most probably be knocked out. In this scenario, your head would be jolted backwards. Obviously, when you can understand and explain the reason, it would be the direction where my strike came from. Hopefully, you will understand that this is a force, and there are 2 things in play. There is power, and there is a direction. This is what we people call a vector. In physics, we call it magnitude, that is the power, and direction, that is direction. Bottom line is, every force is a vector. It must have those 2 properties. Next, when you get knocked down, you fall to the ground. The time is before Newton was even born. Guess what? Objects still fell towards the ground. So even if we didn't have a name for it, that force still existed. Now to explain Newton's law of universal gravitation and Einstein's theory of general relativity to your dumbass. Newtonian gravity has not been replaced by Einsteinian gravity. But before explaining that, maybe we should first understand what the difference is. Stupid homeschoolers. In science, there is a difference between a law and a theory. No, theories eventually do not become laws. A law is an explanation of what happens, whereas a theory is an explanation of why something happens. I know that might be hard to fathom the difference, so let's try rewording that statement. Scientific law is a description of an observed phenomena. It doesn't try to explain why the phenomena exist or what causes it, whereas a scientific theory explains why something happens. Law and theory describe and explain very different things, and each have their own separate concerns. Both are generally considered to be facts because of the countless amount of pieces of evidence that support them. Gravity is a great example to show the difference. Newton came up with the law of universal gravitation that describes the effect of gravity, but Newton makes no attempt at all to explain how gravity works fundamentally, what it is, or why it even exists. Whereas Einstein gave us more information as to why gravity works the way it does and allows us to account for many other phenomena that Newton's law didn't make any attempt to address. Newton's law states that every particle attracts every other particle in the universe with an instantaneous force determined by their mass and their distance. In this description, there is no concept of gravitational waves and no speed of light limit for the effect of gravity. To be fair, Newton didn't even attempt to answer those questions when he came up with his law. All it means that his law is incomplete to explain everything we can observe. But, and it is a big but, his law attempts to explain how gravity works based on mass and distance, and is still accurate and used today even after centuries since his conception. Now to theory of general relativity. Well, even a basic general primer would take me 15 minutes, so I will keep it super short. Time is relative to the velocity of the observer. The effects of gravity propagates as a wave at the speed of light, which means there is no action at a distance like Newton thought, and gravitational fields from massive objects change the geometry of space-time. This carved geometry is what the particles interact with, including light, which has no mass. Basically meaning matter tells space-time how to curve and space-time tells matter how to move. A bad example would be the value of pi. Often we use 3.14, knowing full well that it is not precise, but in most cases it is accurate enough. But when we need more precision, we would use more than 2 decimal points. Similarly, Newton's law can be used to land lunar rover while keeping things simple. But when we need to be extremely precise, we use Einstein's theory of general relativity. It can explain things like orbit of Mercury, which can't be fully explained using just Newton's law. Now, many attempts have been made to falsify both Newton and Einstein and failed. They have stood the test of time. Now, Jackass also claims he has debunked space-time in his another video. Maybe we'll visit it someday. The point here is, Newtonian gravity has not been replaced with Einsteinian gravity. Moving on.
Gravity does not pull things down because helium balloons rise up. Do you all understand that? Smoke rises up. So there is no force pushing down on us.
Now, this jackass doesn't explain what makes us fall towards ground when we jump. If he had said buoyancy or density, I would have ripped him one. Just to explain it to him, yes, it is also gravity. Helium balloons float up in the Earth's atmosphere because the volume of air that they displace is heavier and is pulled downward more strongly, effectively pushing the balloon up and out of the way. So, on a spaceship, with the absence of gravity, there would be no force to push or pull the balloons. Dumbass.
But you are so thoroughly science illiterate that you just shout, "Gravity doesn't exist," and pretend that this is not a stupid thing to say. What is this object? It's the moon.
He just called the moon an object. No one has been to the moon. And even if they have, we have not been there ourselves. And no one right now in the general population will ever go to the moon in the first place. Okay? So don't call it an object.
One of these days, my brain will most probably escape through my ear canal due to the amount of stupidity it is subjected to. Now, if this jackass is really Amish, well, they are nearly universally forbid travel by air. So even if you're all flying to the moon, 97% of the Amish would have problem with that. I mean, they can try to fly by flapping their arms fast, but that is neither here or there. Amish views flying as worldly, symbolic of luxury, and unnecessary. Most Amish do permit air travel in emergencies, such as flights to medical centers. New Order Amish, comprising about 3% of all Amish, permit travel by plane for business or other purposes. Thus, my figure of 97%. Most New Order Amish, comprising around 3% of all Amish, permit travel by plane for business or other purposes. Thus, my figure of 97%. Which means there is a very small chance that you have been to Phuket to visit Big Buddha. I managed to see it about 10 years ago. The foundation layer was laid on May 22, 2002, and on a good day, more than 1,000 people visit the site. It was completed on 2014, but to make it easier, let's just say it was there since 2000. So over the last 20 years, suppose on average, every day was a good day. So around 7.3 million people has visited it. Assuming every single person is unique and didn't visit it twice. So out of 7.8 billion people, only 7.3 million people have been there. Jackass, do you see the point I'm making? I'll clarify it for him. You probably haven't been there with around 7 billion other people. It is still real, and it is an object. It has nothing to do with physically going there or not. Freaking moron.
We've all seen the moon. We've seen it many times. Look at all of these pictures of the moon. What do they have in common? They all show precisely the same features. We all see the same face of the moon. Now let's place the moon above a flat disk and let it float around in the little magic circles you like to imagine. If the Earth was flat, would we all see the same face of the moon?
The moon. No one knows what the moon is. It is a light in the sky. Let me explain this one final time to all of the retarded globers and all of the retarded flat earthers as well as all the retarded people that are shills and demons like Miss Professor Dave explains.
Now viewers, you might be beginning to understand why I keep calling this guy a jackass. Trust me, the worst is still to come. If you thought calling everyone else is retarded is bad enough, you haven't seen anything yet. Hey jackass, suppose you are correct. We don't know what the moon is. But are you denying what we can observe? You completely sidetrack Dave's easy to understand question. Simply because no matter how much you shout and call people retarded, you will still not be able to answer why we see the same face. You will try though, just in a moment. On Earth, we call this tidal locking. And guess what causes it? Gravity. Freaking moron. Miss Professor Dave? Well, when I call you moron, I can prove it. Actually, you proved it yourself. So maybe in your homeschooling, you are not taught the difference between Mr. and Miss? You have one thing going for you though. You can explain all your stupidity with those two words only. Home-schooled.
The moon rocks that NASA brought back were found out to be petrified wood. We already have dated and slated videotapes of them faking the moon missions, as well as space does not even exist the way we think it does.
Well, your statement is not true. Let me explain why. This dumbass is referring to one rock that was displayed at Dutch National Museum, which upon testing was found to be a piece of petrified wood. The museum acquired the rock after the death of former Prime Minister William Dries in 1988. Dries received it as a private gift on October 9, 1969 from then US Ambassador J. William Middendorf during a visit by the 3 Apollo 11 astronauts, part of their Giant Leap Goodwill tour after the first moon landing. Middendorf told Dutch broadcaster NOS News that he had gotten it from the US State Department but couldn't recall the exact details. But what we do know is Apollo astronauts carted back 382 kilograms of moon rocks, some 2,200 separate samples from 6 different lunar sites. And officially, Richard Nixon presented lunar souvenirs to every nation, 135 at the time. The genuine Apollo 11 moon rock given to the Dutch is in the inventory of a different museum in the Netherlands, which is, in fact, one of the countries where the location of both the Apollo 11 and Apollo 17 gift rocks is known. Obviously, after this report, I'm pretty sure every country has done their own study. If any petrified wood was found, we would surely have heard of it. We don't have enough details on the chain of custody for the wood in question, so I can't comment on what might have happened. However, we do know that the rocks were stolen from 10 different countries, excluding USA. These countries are Brazil, Canada, Cyprus, Honduras, Ireland, Malta, Nicaragua, Romania, Spain, and Sweden. Out of these 10, only 5 has been recovered. So, is it possible that either the Prime Minister was wrong, or it was stolen from his collection before it was acquired by the museum, or it being stolen from the museum? All we know for certain that no other countries had the same issue. Amish, you can think that you have debunked moon mission, but once again, it has nothing to do with the shape of the Earth.
There would be no possible way for Nixon to have called using a landline to Neil Armstrong or whoever on the moon.
Translating to, I'm a dumbass and don't know much. Thus, I'm supremely confident that it could not be achieved. First of all, Amish dumbass, you have showed an image of Nixon saying we need a cell tower every 3 months. So are you a habitual liar, or are you really that bad at looking stuff up? Just spewing shit out of your ass doesn't prove anything. To start with, a cell tower range can be far-reached about 31 km. However, as they become unreliable after around 16 km, we normally limit it to that. But this also depends on terrain and other circumstances. Saying that, the first phone call made on a handheld cellular phone was made on April 3, 1973. So Nixon's phone call was before cell tower usage. Those days, us normal people used what we call landline. Those things still exist. This is when you have a physical wire from your home to the nearest post where it is routed through other cables. This is why we see in movies of bad guys cutting cable and the phone then becomes dead. That wire also passes power to the phone. So how did Nixon make that call? According to the AT&T archives, simply the call went from the Oval Office in Washington DC to Houston, where it was routed into space via mission control through the capsule communicator. Now, a little bit of technical information. When the astronauts were outside on the moon, their PLS life support backpack contained a VHF band radio. This transmitted data back and forth to the Helium communication system. This Helium communication system then communicated signals with Earth using S-band, a UHF frequency range widely used in space because of its ability to pass through Earth's ionosphere without distortion or reflection. All voice communication was amplitude modulated, which is why it carried readily recognizable AM signal distortions and noise. On the moon's surface, the crew deployed a large umbrella-like S-band antenna for beaming voice and data directly back to Earth. But on Apollo Command and Service Module, they also had a high-gain antenna array. Freaking moron. I can't think of a way, so I must be right. Dumbass.
First off, we've never even seen the other side to even prove that it's even a ball. And on top of that, observation is not science. You have to have experimentation, number one. So even if we see it, it still doesn't necessarily mean that it's a spherical object. He is taking the notion of a spinning space ball, so that's already begging the question. And what he's doing is he's raping your little tiny minds.
Well, technically, a flat plate holding vertically perpendicular to my eyesight would mean I wouldn't see the far end. Then, even if I see the other side, it doesn't establish the shape. I do have a video and hopefully I'll remember to link it in description. I do show how shapes appear from different viewpoints. Pretty basic stuff. While I'm looking at the plate straight on, it appears circular. But someone viewing it from the side would see it as a flat line. Now we have seen the other side. And yes, it doesn't mean it is spherical. All it means that it has to be spherical if it is close by. If it is far away, we can't confirm it yet. That is where solar eclipse comes in. We will talk about lunar eclipse shortly, so I will explain it then.
Earth is flat, space is fake. Do you understand? The idea that you're looking up to even see what's in the sky, okay? And like I said, while this is going, I'm going to be showing you what stars actually look like through a telescope, and then you could tell me what you're looking at. And you tell me whether you're looking at anything, any real cloud formations or anything. You're not. You're looking through a telescope at a light in the sky. That's the reason why Saturn and other lights in the sky never change their angle.
So Amish has or finds a shitty photograph, and thus it is whatever he claims it to be. Can I recommend Thunderfoot's channel, where he does some amazing job with telescope. If the person doesn't know how to use a telescope, it is hardly the telescope or the star's fault. Another live from Amish, there are many constellations that are not visible through the year from UK. We have, let's see, Taurus, Orion, Canis Major and Gemini that can only be seen during winter and spring. We have Leo that has a spring star pattern. Cygnus is visible during summer and sometimes known as a Northern Cross. Scorpius is best seen in July and August in the UK. Although it appears low on the horizon, that only the top half of the pattern can be seen. Pegasus is a large constellation that is visible during autumn for the UK. Then there are some stars that take a long time to change this angle, such as Polaris. Amish, not only you are a jackass, but also a liar.
All the older civilizations show that the Earth is actually flat, and they all say that the Earth is actually flat. And then on top of that, like I said, we already debunked history, showing that they lied and they covered up history.
So, jackass, if we covered up history, then why did we not cover up that bit where they mention flat Earth? Dumbass. Hindu mythology says eclipse occur when the sun god and moon goddess is chased by a demon named Rahu across the sky. When Rahu gets to them, he basically eats them. As Rahu only has an immortal head, sun and moon then passes through. It is written in old books, so it must be true, right? You talked about observation earlier and how you have to have experimentation. So let me guess, your experimentation is looking at old books. Did I get that right?
So He also said in there that we don't have to do any physics, we don't have to do any equations, we don't have to do any math. Why does math not represent reality? Let me debunk him again right now. Because if I only give you one apple, I can't take 2 apples away from you. But I can do that in math, and therefore you would be left with -1.
Amish, you're a freaking liar. What Professor Dave said was, for today's conclusive proof, we didn't have to talk about physics or astronomy or space travel. We didn't have to do any math. There were no equations for you to misunderstand or numbers for you to lie about. Obviously, he was wrong, as you still managed to lie about it. About your math debunk, oh, you are truly stupid. Money is physical, correct? I can take it out of a machine. I can touch it, smell it. Most importantly, I can spend it. If my account goes into negative balance, I have an overdraft, meaning I can still take some physical British pound out, which getting deeper into negative. So what is your point? With your stupid apple, math says that if you could take 2 apples, I would be left with -1 apple. The key here is if you could. But to properly address this point, the question really is, though we have many elegant mathematical formulas such as equal to mc squared that demonstrate how useful math can be for us, does it mean that the physical world naturally flows the rules of mathematics as its mother tongue, and that this mathematics has its own existence that is out there waiting to be discovered? This point of view on the nature of relationship between mathematics and the physical world is called Platonism, and not everyone agrees with it. Einstein, a mathematical non-Platonist, was one scientist who marveled at the power of mathematics. He asked, how can it be that mathematics, being after all a product of human thought which is independent of experience, is so admirably appropriate to the objects of reality? This discussion, in my humble opinion, is more philosophical than anything else. I am hoping to address it in another video, as it will not be a short video, and this is being quite long on its own. So I will just give one example. Discovery of the planet Neptune was done entirely using math. The French astronomer Urbain-Jean-Joseph Leverrier and the British astronomer John Couch Adams independently predicted the existence and position of the planet Neptune using only mathematics, a pivotal event in the history of astronomy. Neptune, whose existence was visually confirmed in 1846, was the first planet to be discovered by mathematical rather than observational means. The discovery of Neptune not only represents the greatest triumph of Newtonian gravitational theory since the return of Halley's comet in 1758, but it also marks a point at which mathematics and theory, rather than observation, began to take the lead in astronomical research. So for the time being, I'll let you decide how important math is. As a computer system engineer, I can tell you that a lot of mathematical models are used to test everything from automobile to bridges to skyscraper to see what would happen in case of collision, turbulence and such. We should be able to predict exactly where a water droplet from a sprinkler system would land if we have all the variables. And that is the key point, all the variables. If I drop a penny from the top of a skyscraper, we can predict how long it would take to reach the bottom, taking air resistance in calculation. And yet, someone can use a net to catch that penny, and thus it would never fall to the ground. Does that mean the math is incorrect? I would say it is not. A new variable came into play that we haven't accounted for. That is it. Next portion is just to show why I'm pissed off with this jackass.
I mean, honestly, I see most of you walking around with masks on your faces, so I know you're retarded. But it is so shocking to see so many stupid people. You are so stupid that NASA rapes you, and they love raping you, that you just love rape. It's almost like you got Stockholm syndrome or something. You know, you love being raped. You love being raped. You just love it. Every single one of you globetards absolutely love it.
There was a woman on Twitter who not only claimed that social media gave her PTSD, she also complained to an army superior officer regarding a post where the person explaining PTSD is what you get by seeing your friend being blown up or actual killing, aka actual traumatic experience. That stupid woman compared her Twitter experience with that. Here we have this vile a-hole doing the same. Rape is one of the most abhorrent crime I can think of. This guy minimizing it is akin to giving a middle finger to all the people who have been a victim of such crime. Amish, you're a vile piece of shit, and I'm being generous to you and looking down at shit.
This has already been debunked. You do not look at the moon to see if the earth is flat. You don't go to sleep at night and dream to see if the earth is flat. That has nothing to do with measuring the earth. And we have measured it. Hashtag the black swan.
To the others, you can observe a shadow, and that would give a basic idea of the shape. When you then observe the shadow over time, where the light is coming from different angles, you can positively rule out certain shape. For example, a cube with the light source head on will give a rectangular shadow. At a 45-degree angle from any corner would give us an elongated hexagon. A circular disc would have a circular shadow. But at an angle, the shadow would be oval, eclipse, and so on. If light is from the side, the shadow would be a line. There is only one shape that can cast a complete circular shadow regardless what angle the light is from. And that shape, you guessed it, is a sphere. We observe solar eclipse when the shadow of the moon is obscuring the sun. What do we observe or have observed for millenniums? Oh, why? We observed a circular shadow. Similarly, during lunar eclipse, we see Earth's shadow on the moon. Again, it is circular. So Amish dumbass, we can look at moon to figure out the shape of Earth. You saying nah doesn't change the fact. And what the hell do you mean by you have measured it hashtag black swan? You mean the picture where the straight crane looks all wavy? You keep shouting science and experiment. This is the time I have to break it to you that it also needs to be repeatable. Every photograph is CG or composite until it is something that fits your narrative, correct? This is what we call cherry picking. For others, black swan proves refraction and nothing else. For every black swan, you can find 1,000 photographs showing it not to be the case. But no, it is black swan. Freaking moron.
Do you understand that we can see it for over 1,000 miles?
Well, unless you're high up, you can't. You do mention J. Tolan's media. I will check that video out and be sure about it. I will debunk it. And I do mean debunk with pure science and math. None of this shouting and claiming it is so because I say so. Debunking needs actual proof and not claims.
I'm wasting my time here talking to idiot retards, trying to explain to them.
Amish, yep, the feeling is mutual, jackass. Though if I call you retard, I would be insulting every other person who truly have a lack of mental acumen. Even they would be laughing at your stupidity, ignorance, arrogance, incredulity, and vileness. Damn it, another long video and there were more things to tear down. Amish, I will be watching you and prove every time that you are a dumbass. Take my advice, don't open your mouth and let everyone know how stupid a person can truly be. And for the rest, if you have managed to stick throughout the video, well, I honestly appreciate it. If you have enjoyed this content, please leave a like, comment, and share it around. If you think it is worthwhile, I would surely appreciate a sub as well. Thank you for watching, wherever you are. Have a safe day. Signing off.
are one people, and we, like you, we are one tribe.